These were nasty, vicious slurs around a horrific crime committed by Jimmy Savile, which should never have been uttered or repeated by a British Prime Minister. And it's a shame on Boris Johnson that he did this. And just like we saw with Donald Trump, the whipping up of people that led to a revolt on Capitol Hill, I'm afraid the behavior of that mob on the embankment, the chanting that they were making, and I'm not going to repeat on live radio what they were saying, I'm afraid comes from our democratically elected Prime Minister.
On Times Radio Drive this afternoon, David Lammy, the Labour MP and Shadow Foreign Secretary. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you.
Do you think there's been diplomatic progress today?
Well, look, all efforts to try and de-escalate what is happening at the moment on Ukraine's borders are deeply necessary. We've seen Emmanuel Macron going to France. We've seen Schulz going to Washington. And of course, it's important to see our Prime Minister in Poland today speaking with allies and being at NATO, and also Liz Truss attempting to find a way forward in Russia.
Attempting?
Well, look, we will know when Vladimir Putin moves his troops that we've had success, but we have to remain united in all of those efforts. We have to do everything we can. The seriousness of this is a tremendous loss of life in Ukraine. That is Ukrainian life and, of course, Russian life. So for all of those reasons, we need to de-escalate.
So are you saying, just reading between the lines, are you saying that Labour and you and Keir Starmer, if you were in post, you wouldn't be necessarily doing anything different to what Liz Truss and Boris Johnson are doing at the moment?
Well, look, I mean, I think this is not a partisan moment. I really think it's too serious for playing small politics. We have differences with the government over their lack of implementation of the Russia report and the dirty money circling around London, money that's found its way into the Conservative Party, by the way, some of it. So we have raised those issues and continue to raise those issues. And they're particularly important when we're looking at sanctions. And today, I've been very concerned that that sanctions regime has come in just as Parliament is in recess. So we've not had proper ability to scrutinise it, to debate it, to discuss it and make sure it's fit for purpose. But in the end, the diplomatic attempts have got to be made. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I and Keir Starmer have been able to get the high-level briefings that you would expect on Privy Council terms from our Ministry of Defence, our intelligence services and others. And the situation, as the Prime Minister describes it, is grim, and he's right about that.
And on the point that you made there about the new powers coming into force to give the UK the ability to expand the sanctions against Russia, which James Cleverly, the Foreign Office Minister, announced in the House today, as you say, just as Parliament is closing for recess, your colleague Chris Bryant said it was completely autocratic for our government to do that. Would you agree with those words?
Well, it doesn't fit with what Liz Truss was saying to the House just a few days ago when she announced the sanctions. And she gave the impression that we would be able to examine and see these sanctions, the SI move forward in Parliament before recess. To lay them with just 20 minutes to bear is scrambling around.
But scrambling around, is it autocratic?
Well, it's not the way to treat a democracy when you're trying to stand up for democratic principles. So, I mean, I was disturbed, and that's why I called an urgent question on it today. What would really worry me, I don't know if this is for fact, if the only reason the legislation came forward in the 11th hour is because I asked the urgent question first thing this morning. So that, what is going on at the Foreign Office, I think, is of real concern, and particularly because of the way that we dealt with Afghanistan. You'll understand why the opposition is very concerned about these sort of last-minute actions.
Your former colleague Jeremy Corbyn is out and about this afternoon with his friends at Stop the War. They're taking part in a rally in just about an hour's time. And his view is that the US and the UK are ramping up the threat of war. Do you think he's got a point?
All of us want peace. I've got to say, I disagree with that position. And we've got to be very, very careful of playing into the Russian framing of this debate. The reason why there are threats in Europe is because of the 130,000 troops that are now amassed on Ukraine's borders. The reason why there's so much concern is because of the separatist action into eastern Ukraine, supported by the Kremlin. The reason we're here is because of the annexing of Crimea. The reason we're here is because of the murdering of poisoning of British citizens in Salisbury. The reason why we're here is because of the way that Putin has dealt with opposition in his own country, the way he's dealt with minorities in his own country. Look at the way he's dealt with LGBTQ rights. Look, let's be serious. Of course we want peace, but the way to get peace is to support our Ukrainian partners and to support NATO at this time. NATO, by the way, something that we should be proud of in the Labour tradition, because Attlee and Ernest Bevin took us in to that important agreement that's maintained peace in Europe since the Second World War.
Mr. Lammy, just a couple of questions on matters back home while we've got you. Sir Keir Starmer in the Times actually this morning has made explicitly a link between what the Prime Minister said at the dispatch box about him and Jimmy Savile and the mob who accosted him and you the other night. Is the Prime Minister responsible for you and Sir Keir Starmer being hounded by demonstrators?
I haven't seen a Prime Minister of any political complexion other than Donald Trump scratch around in the dark web, nasty corners of the far right, pick an issue and bring it to the floor of a great democratic institution like the House of Commons. These were nasty, vicious slurs around a horrific crime committed by Jimmy Savile, which should never have been uttered or repeated by a British Prime Minister. And it's a shame on Boris Johnson that he did this. And just like we saw with Donald Trump, the whipping up of people that led to a revolt on Capitol Hill, I'm afraid the behavior of that mob on the embankment, the chanting that they were making, and I'm not going to repeat on live radio what they were saying, I'm afraid comes from our democratically elected Prime Minister.
And is it right?
A very, very low moment indeed in our democracy.
And is it right, as Sadiq Khan told LBC the other day, that he said you and Keir Starmer, but did you have a conversation with your family after that about whether it was worth carrying on after all this abuse with politics?
Look, of course, these issues cause great pain and concern to family members, and I can't, the amount of relatives that contacted me straight away because they worry about my welfare, and they're not blind to the death threats that MPs receive, and very sadly those that have lost their lives. So when they see issues like this, of course it causes tremendous stress and strain. But I said this before, you can take the boy out of Tottenham, but you can't take the Tottenham out of the boy. And I will always stand up to bullies.
And just finally, with your Tottenham MP hat on, I wonder what you made of the interview that Dame Cressida Dick, the Met Police Commissioner, gave earlier on today, speaking to BBC London. She said she has absolutely no intention of leaving her post, despite all these accusations, as you know, of racism, of sexism, of homophobia within the force. Again, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, has said that she has days or weeks to sort this out. Do you agree?
I think Sadiq Khan is right. I pay tribute to the officers that supported myself and Sir Keir Starmer as we walked down the embankment, and I see every day in my constituency officers who are doing a tremendous job. But one cannot be blind to the racism, to the misogyny, to the real concerns that are being raised week after week about members who put on that Metropolitan Police uniform. And it's really important that those who lead the Met have the trust and confidence of the public. And this is a very, very low ebb, I think, that the Met is in. And I think that Sadiq Khan was right to give the Met Commissioner notice.
So if it's not sorted out in weeks, you'll be calling for her to go.
It's not. These are matters, quite rightly, for Sadiq and for the Home Secretary and for my colleague Yvette Cooper. And you'll understand that I'm pretty engaged in foreign affairs. But as a London MP, I deeply deplore the racism.
Thanks very much for your time this afternoon. That's David Lammy, the Labour MP and Shadow Foreign Secretary.